So, thank you for joining us, everyone, uh, this evening. So, for those who already don't know, I am Daisy Windsor and I am joined by Tilly, and we will be your co-chairs for today's panel. So, we're working with First Story, who is a creative writing charity that supports young people to share their stories in their own words. So we are both part of their creative young creatives program. Sorry, I got my words muddled. Um, which supports progression opportunities for young writers from First Story and beyond. And we just want to say we are very grateful to the Arts Council England for funding this program.
This is the fourth and final incredible session of our Creative Careers panel event series, and they have all been spectacular so far. We hear amazing insights from creative professionals, including how they use language and literacy in their work, which is something First Story cares so much about. The themes of our panel events were gathered from First Story alumni, and they have been super diverse and interesting. So I would definitely recommend checking out the other ones. And today we will speak to experts in media. If you need closed captions, there is a little button at the bottom of your screen that has three little dots and says more. If you click on that, you can access closed captions. They are auto generated, but generally pretty good. In this section, you can also find the Q&A button, in which you can ask any questions you might have for our panelists at any time, and we'll check them at the end and try and get through them if we have time. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to our wonderful panelists. We have Toby Cherumateng, who is a wonderful film and TV producer. We have M. Molden, who is the producer and director for Angel Sharp Media. And we are currently waiting on Testament, who is a wonderful poet and writer and will be in the room as soon as possible. Unfortunately, Amanda, who was listed, cannot attend today due to personal matters, but we are wishing her all the best. And you can find the links to her website in the chat.
So after that incredible introduction by Tilly, we'll start with our questions. So our first question is, what was one impactful step in getting you to where you are in your career? Can we start with Toby, if that's okay?
Yeah, sure. I think for me, to be honest, a lot of it was about doing a lot of playful, experimental, rehearsal type things with my friends. I think a lot of the things that I made really early on were just us trying to figure out what we wanted to do and I guess the ways that we wanted to work, but we were able to do that in the kind of safest environment of each other. We weren't necessarily accountable to any like commissioners or financiers or anyone other than each other. And it meant that all of the mistakes that we needed to make in order to just become better at our craft, were made in a space of care. Um, and I think that was really fundamental for us before, I guess, moving into a space where we are now accountable and we're working with other people's money and all of these other things. And that's not to say that, mistakes and stuff like that weren't made because everything is still a new experience. But yeah, being able to sort of grow within the network of my peers and my friends and us being able to sort of develop our careers together, um, I think was just incredibly key and fundamental. And any space actually that I participate in that has allowed me to explore and play and try things and say, okay, I don't like that. Don't want to do that again. Oh, I'm really interested in that. Let me think about that more. Um, those kind of spaces have been really key for me.
That's an amazing answer. Thank you so much. So I'll move the question on to M now.
Yeah. I
found it hard to think of one meaningful step that would be useful to talk about, but I think I'll mention a few. One was that when I discovered video editing, which is on my media course, because I had wanted to do journalism and always liked writing. But when I realized you could tell stories with pictures, um, that was like a light bulb moment, I think, for me to be like, oh, I could do this as a job. Um, that is a job that people have, is they edit video into a film. So that was really cool. And yeah, I think like sort of people who've kind of taken a risk on me and kind of given me an opportunity to learn, and they've taken where they've taken the pressure off and sort of said, you can come and work with us, and like there's not such pressure on deadlines, like you're just here to kind of learn. Like um yeah, a couple of my first jobs were a bit like that, and that was great. And then more recently, um I had someone I just knew through it was like a friend of a friend who said, oh, you do video stuff, can you make a film for us? And that enabled me to move from kind of editing, sitting behind the computer, to producing and directing stuff and trying to tell stories in the sort of capturing element. So actually filming and working with contributors, um, as opposed to just the editing, which is what I'd done before. And then that allowed me to kind of become a producer, director more properly, really. So yeah, a few of those things, I think.
Perfect. Thank you. Testament. Do you want me to repeat the question for you? Are you okay for me to ask you the question? Are you caught up? Perfect. So,
Yeah,
um,
if you can repeat the question, that'd be great.
yes,
Thank
of
you.
course I will. So, our first question that I'll direct towards you now was, what was one impactful step in getting you to where you are in your career?
Um, yep, probably just like other people have said, there's multiple, and it's hard to pick the sort of one moment. I just basically keep saying yes to things. And it's putting your foot in one area and getting established in one area will lead to more of that work. So I was a rapper, I am a rapper first. Um, and um, the success in rap led to work in spoken, led to more rap, but also led to offshoots where you've got a choice where someone says, oh, will you perform at the spoken word night without music? And you're like, oh, okay. And you could say no because it could be too scary. But if you say yes, great things might happen. So um yeah, I think, and then that led to other things, and ended up writing plays and then TVs. But the I guess the first thing, what's the first scary thing I said yes to? I guess that would be the thing, wouldn't it? Like I knew I wanted to be a rapper. Uh, yeah. I'm trying to think of that very first thing. Oh, the first thing actually was I was performing as a beatboxer and as a rapper, and I just found out I was going to become a parent, and I was part of one of the groups that I was part of a beatboxing orchestra, and SK Shlomo, who was running that, had turned that into begin to turn it into a theatre show, and I was like, oh, okay, hip hop in theatre, okay, that's interesting. Um, and then so literally, I can remember, I think we were beatboxing like a disco classic tune, like something from the 70s, like Le Freak, I think it was, and I was just thinking, oh yeah, hip hop theatre, I could do something like that. And then when I found out I was going to be a parent, I was like, okay, I need to have other ways of making a living and other ways of still being me, still telling my stories the way I want to, still performing, still following my heart, but in a way that um could lead to other avenues. So I approached some of the theatres I was teaching rap and beatbox at already, so Battersea and up in Leeds as well, and started to talk to them about how do you make a show. Um, so I think that was probably the key step. And then from then, you make allies and friends and advisors and people that can give you advice and encouragement and direction. And then yeah, and that was 11 years ago. And I'm just like, why didn't I think of doing this when I was 17? Why didn't I think of doing it? Why didn't I have tried this when I was 21? Why was I waiting for someone to ask me for permission the whole time? And actually, I could have started something. There we go. So I guess that's it.
That was an amazing answer, all of you. Thank you so much. So I'll pass it on to Tilly for the next question.
Thank you so much, guys. So clearly, it is so important to be able to find creative spaces and creative peers and take risks. But what are some important skills that you think you need to build to access your career? So I'd like to start this with if that's okay, and then we'll kind of bounce off each other.
Yeah, so just for context, so I'm a producer and director for films, but for like brands and organizations. Um, and yeah, we do a little bit of like explainers and science videos. We do a few things for the BBC, like BBC Science stuff. It's all kind of storytelling, like factual kind of stuff, but some of it is also like quite promotional, so you're trying to like get into the mindset of a brand, and it's a bit feels a bit like advertising in a way. Um, so that's what we do, but more broadly, like I have found helpful in my career, um, to try, if possible, and this I think is just something that takes a while to develop, to not take feedback too personally on creative work. Sometimes it feels like someone is like punching you in the stomach when you present something and you say like, here it is, like hope you like it, and then someone's like, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure I do, and it feels horrible. But actually, certainly for like paid work, I would say try and just disconnect yourself slightly, and not get too attached, because sometimes there's so many competing things and it's absolutely not personal about your like, the input that you've had just didn't necessarily match what that person wanted to say with the film. Um, and there's other things going on, and it's like it's about so many things, whether it works or not, or whether someone likes the music you've chosen, or whether someone likes the kind of story you're telling. So try not to take it too personally, but that is absolutely impossible, I'd say, definitely at the beginning. Um, and also for me in my career, I think learning to translate story to images. So like just being able to kind of have words in your head and think about how you would translate that into like what you would want people to see, like if they were watching it. Um, and some interesting questions if you're thinking, well, going into film and you've got a story idea, it's like, well, what would I expect to see at this moment? Like if I was watching this as a TV show, or like when I've watched documentaries, like how have people shown this kind of thing? Um, and sometimes that comes really easily, and sometimes it takes uh, a while of kind of working at it and sort of scratching your head and thinking about how you would show something, and maybe not always going for the obvious way and trying to do something different. And um, yeah, but it's like that comes from also just watching stuff you like and sort of analyzing it, and then trying to think about why you like it and why you like the way they put those shots there, or so yeah, did that make sense?
That
Yeah,
was brilliant.
translating words to images basically, I think is a really good skill. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Toby, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I think I would say having a really clear understanding of your taste is really important. I think especially as a producer, I think actually a lot of people don't assume that I have specific tastes. There's just sort of like, I've written a thing, you're a producer, you're gonna make it. And it's like, well, actually, this might not interest me. So I think being like really clear about the kind of work that you want to make, especially if you're coming from a kind of producerial background, but just generally as an artist. Um, and I think that also comes with just being, I guess, a lover of art and a student of the craft. And I think that's really general. So when people ask me what I'm watching, I might say, oh, I'm watching Widow's Bay on Apple TV, but I'm also watching The Traitors. And these are both things that I can talk about in depth because I really enjoy both of these things for very different reasons. And so it doesn't necessarily mean just staying within your pocket. Um, but if you're working in film and TV, going to see plays or going to see exhibitions or going to see live performance, like things that also exist outside of just the medium that you're working within. Um, Especially because you see a lot of artists moving across all of these art forms anyway. I think is really important. And when it comes to what I was saying about building your taste and the understanding of your taste, and I would also say kind of knowing how, having a real understanding of how you work with people. I think, to be honest, like most of my job is managing other people's feelings. And then there's like the logistical stuff of like budgets and blah, 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 blah. Um, I think I think the arts is a really kind of people-centered space. And a lot of the time we're just dealing with this person's come in and they're feeling like this, and this other person's come in and they're feeling like this. And you have to manage that and understanding what your kind of systems are when it comes to, yeah, just people management, but from a place of care, I think, and from a place of humanity as opposed to just sort of like managerially, if that makes sense. So I think a lot about um, both the way that I might communicate with two people, and they might have very different communication styles, but also the way that I like to be communicated with as well. The way that I like to receive feedback could be very different to the way that someone else likes to receive feedback. All of these kind of things. So kind of, I think taking people at face value. And then lastly, I think just being a really decent human being. Um, I think there are lots of really amazing and wonderful people in this industry. And I think when you find them and you get to work with them, it feels really magical and it feels like you're making something really special. Um, and so I always want to make sure that I'm positioning my best self as someone who just wants to meet amazing people. I think a lot of the friends that I've met in this industry, I started off just being a fan of their work and just telling them that I really loved their work. And then that kind of evolved into a working relationship, which then evolved into a real friendship. Um, and I think, to be honest, most of the people that I work with, it's because I also like them as people, and not just like the work that they make. So, um, yeah, I think those three things I would say are key skills.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And last but absolutely not least, Testament. Do you have anything to add?
Um, learning how to, so there's, so yeah, I agree with everything that people have said. Obviously, I'm not a producer, um, but there is something, the three C's. I'm going to give you the three C's, and this is the three C's on how to build a good team, and it's in order of priority. So the three C's are character, competence, and chemistry. Character is someone's personality and their not just the personality, like are they loud or they're quiet, but do they have maturity, experience? Are they dependable? Are they trustworthy? That's character. And because without that, like if you're aligning with yourself on an artistic team or a project, whether that's a co-writer or whether that is a producer or a organization, like hopefully they've got a good character. Um, so that if things go wrong, no one's going to punch you in your face. But equally, no one's going to run off with half the money or take credit for something or not credit you properly or be willing to discuss things properly in a thoughtful and hopefully loving and kind way, compassionate way when if things get sticky. Um, so that's one thing, and that applies definitely across the arts. And the next one is competence, is that like can they actually do the job? So if you're asking someone to co-write with you, can they actually write? Now, if they I've met people who are brilliant at a job, but are bullies or are compulsive liars or whatever, or just they don't the character doesn't click with they're not trustworthy in some way or shape or form. So but if you're with someone and they haven't got the skills, they can learn the skills. If it's a project where you can take time to learn, oh, I want to be a producer, great. But I know you're trustworthy. I know you're really solid as a person. You can learn producing as I'm learning writing. We can work together. That's fantastic. Um, and then the last one is chemistry, which is that those people that can finish each other's sandwiches, um, who will not only um, understand what you're trying to say, but will help add to that and contribute. Oh, the next idea, and you go, oh my God, that's brilliant! I can't believe you just thought of the thing that finishes the thing that I wanted to think, or you thought of the connection with the that venue or that company, or that's brilliant. Oh, that's a great idea, a great way to approach it, or whatever. So, and chemistry can be built up over time as well. Um, but but the life skills and the life experiences, you can't teach that to someone. You can't teach someone who has got a real massive problem with, I don't know, taking notes, or you can't really teach that. They have to learn that themselves on their own thing. They can't go on a course to like not be a bully, or maybe there is a course, but you know what I mean. It's a lot tricky. It's a lot stickier. Um, so those are my those are not skills that you're learning, I guess. I mean, it's about judgment and stuff. Like I spoke to someone really, really high profile in a certain sector, and we really got great chemistry on a first Zoom meeting. And a bit younger than me, this person, but they're a Jedi at what they do. They're amazing. They're one of the best in the country at this particular art form. Um, but really quickly they trusted me with loads of information really quickly, but they never met me before. And they were telling me like secrets about some of the problems that they've had. And they were very vulnerable with me, which is lovely. And I'm not going to tell that to anyone. And I'm not going to abuse that. But afterwards, I was reflecting, yo, this person doesn't really know me. And actually, don't tell people all your stuff. It's like, those people who put too much information on Facebook. um, um, but they say, I hate people right now, or whatever, or they tell you too much information about a relationship they've just had. It's like, yo, if that's what your calling is, fine, but like protect yourself. And it made me think this person of like, they're great at their art, but yeah, they haven't been in those rooms where they've been burned yet, or they've had someone take something out context, and it's just like we've got to care for each other, and that means caring for yourself. So learning the skills about character and who to work with, how to work with it, when is it appropriate, when you're deep enough with person to share, actually I really struggle with this, or I met this person, they were really horrible, and how can I deal with that, rather than anyway. So it's just learning about character and relationships, because in the arts in particular, relationships are really, really key. And you make good relationships that will could stand you for the rest of your life and could generate work for you forever if you've got good ones.
Thank you so much. The importance of people and community is really coming through. I'll pass over to Daisy for the next question.
Perfect. Those were amazing answers. And I took some notes as you were answering, and I popped like a little summary in the chat of the different skills. So it might be helpful for some people to have a look at those and see how they can build them. So for our third question, I know this might differ a lot between each of you. So it is, what are good ways for finding a first job in media? Now I know that's quite like broad. Whether there's like different websites, different companies. I know like for other jobs, like scouring on LinkedIn and trying to post might be helpful. Can I go to Toby to start with this?
Um, I don't actually know if I have an answer to be honest. I think it also depends. Like, do you mean like a full-time job or like as a freelancer?
Um, I think they're looking probably towards full-time jobs. But if you have an answer for freelancer, like whatever you think is best. I'm sorry. Rose, do you have a particular Tilly?
I would
Particular
go with
preference?
either, just honestly, kind of whatever work that you do and whatever spaces you work in, how is the best way to kind of get into those and get that first kind of bit of experience?
Got you. Okay, cool. Because I guess, yeah, for context, before moving into film, I used to work in theatre, and that I was working there full time, but I've never had a full-time in-house job in this current industry. So in terms of that, I wouldn't really know how to advise people to do that. But if it's about trying to gain experience on different sets or also like making things yourself with your friends, which I kind of talked about earlier before, um, I think like I get messages all the time from people who are just sort of like, I'm really interested in this. If you have any sort of like production assistant or runner roles or anything like that, or could I shadow you or things like that, just to sort of for people to sort of like gain or I guess like widen their knowledge and experience of the kind of stuff that I do, and I guess like the kind of work that I do. That's always an option for people. It's obviously very dependent on if people have productions and stuff happening, but I think with my particular job, like the easiest way to learn is to do it. Unfortunately, like I think we can kind of theorize around some of the things, but every producer is so different. And I think the process is really about just finding out the way that you produce. But I would always go back to what I said in the beginning about making stuff with your friends, just because it really does give you the space to develop an understanding of how you want to work specifically, the kind of people that you want to work with, the kind of things that you want to make. And you're doing that with again, like I guess within the comfort of only being accountable to people that you care about and you know care for you, in a way that's outside of industry. And so, and I also wouldn't think too deeply about what those initial things are that you're making, because I think you always look back at like the earlier stuff that you've done and you always think is the most terrible thing that you could have made. But the point is to just do it and to keep doing it. And I think the only way that you can do that is just about figuring out what resource you have between you and your friends and just making something and not putting the pressure on that thing to be the thing that's gonna win awards at festivals and the thing that's gonna win a BAFTA or whatever, but is about the process of just doing. Because ultimately it is those things that then lead to those other jobs from that come in from other people because I guess they're seeing the work that you've already made. And so yeah, I think that a lot of people do is just reaching out to people and trying to gain experience when it comes to entry level roles. I know more specifically organizations like Screen Skills have a trainee scheme as well, across both film and TV. And across different departments as well. So if you're interested in hair and makeup or production design or lighting, camera, production. I think they have it across the board. Um, that's something that they have across film and TV every year, and those again are kind of paid experiences on productions too. So for entry level things, that could be great. But even with those kind of things, I think having done stuff already within your community of people can only strengthen your CV when it comes to those kind of experiences. Warner Brothers HQ also have a similar kind of trainee program as well. I don't know about it too deeply, but they have one. And I think that puts you go through a kind of like training period, and then I think you get put onto a Warner Brothers production, which is obviously very different to any other production. Um, so yeah, there are schemes and programs and workshops galore, especially if you're under 25. So I would just do them all regardless of whether you are very sure about if it's the thing that you want to do, because the point is also about figuring out what you like and what you don't like. Um, and trying and playing and testing. It's the best time to do that. And then the other side of it is just to start the making of things within your community and see what comes out of that experience.
That's a really good answer. Sorry about the start of my questioning. Can I move that question now to Testament, if that's okay?
Yeah, so my route into media per se, um, as I sort of mentioned previously, was music and then poetry, spoken word, and then writing my own theatre show. Um, and theatre's great because, um, yeah, you don't need masses of budget to do it to make a theatre show. Theatre can be one person on a chair, um, in a park. It doesn't have to be that, and you're learning storytelling and you're learning communication, and you might be learning production as well. And as in what does the show look like, feel like? Is there a set? Is there not a set? Are there props? Yeah, how are we marketing this event? Are we, you could be running gigs, you could be putting on music events and learning about media that way. How are we using the internet to spread the word? And am I doing a promo video to market my theatre show or my music? There's loads of different ways. Or filmmaking, on your mobile phones because you now have a whole editing suite on you know, on your phone. So there's loads of different ways to do it. So for me, it was through theatre, and in terms of writing, and theatre is the writer is kind of king in theatre land, or queen or empress or whatever pronoun. Um, so Supreme Leader, how about that? And then so in terms of learning how to write, it's that's the one, because you only have your pen, and it's what the pen makes that will determine. Sorry, is there too much noise coming through? Okay, great. So it's the power is all in the pen or the performer, basically. That's it. That's all you've got. The rest is make believe. So the words that you craft can, whether you're writing a Shakespearean style soliloquy or having an argument between neighbors or space aliens or whatever, it's just with your pen. So in terms of grounding in writing, there's a reason why most of the top writers on television and movies often start in theatre. So the most successful, most Emmy Award winning shows, whether it's Succession or something, of course, because you have to really work, as a writer. It's like jazz for pop musicians. Like after you've learnt jazz, doing playing a Sabrina Carpenter song is quite easy because it's so complex jazz. You've got not only got to read complicated stuff, but you've got to improvise complicated stuff as well. So then actually doing like plinky some simple chord progression is a lot easier after that. Um, yeah, so and I feel like theatre is a really good grounding in that. Um, Actors say the same. A lot of theatre actors say the same about their transition between theatre and telly as well. So that's my big thing. And the great thing about theatre is loads of the media world sniff around theatre. So radio producers are sniffing around theatre, going, "Oh, where's the next radio writer going to come from?" TV and film. If you have a successful play, so that my big turning point in my career was getting plays on professional stages and then getting an agent. And then I think my first play at the Royal Court, immediately I had people from America sending me messages saying, "Oh, can we go the rights to this or negotiating this and that about the play?" So it was theatre that gave me the thing into TV, and that's how I ended up writing for Netflix and Disney Plus. Was because and loads for BBC Radio. Um, so yeah, it's all because of theatre. So that's a good way to make friends, make connections, have fun, get stressed about being a writer, and then learn what it is to be a writer, and then realize it's okay. Stress is just part of that. There we go. Cheers.
Perfect. So again, last but never least, I'll pass the question on to Em.
Yeah, good ways for first job in my industry. Um, I think explore connections through people you know, which is an annoying thing because it's not what you know, it's who you know is an annoying fact of career generally. But like I think even if it like sort of all experience in something related is good. So I think if you're wanting to go into film, but you could like just work with a photographer for a bit and find out how they create stories with images. Um, because your dad's friend of a friend is a photographer. That's still useful, I think. Um, so because I think it can be difficult. I found it really difficult to get my first job in media, and I do remember going for an edit assistant job for a company in London, and this was 15 years ago, maybe slightly longer, and they offered £12,000, and about 30 people went for the job. And I didn't get it, but equally, like, apply for loads and loads of stuff, be persistent, because like all those interviews and like where you meet someone and then it doesn't work out, that's still useful, I think. Um, Being in a room with someone, even if they ultimately decide to pick someone else for that job, is still really useful. And all those experiences, help you for the next time you are in a room with someone. We all like to be flattered, so I'd say like email a company you like or a person you like, tell them why you like them, and then email them again and again. Um, because sometimes you just, as a person who's like juggling things and spinning plates, you don't have time always to respond to people who are kind of looking for their first. But you do remember being that person. So I always go like, oh, I wish I could offer this person something, but I'm working on 6 other projects. But then if they email again, and then second or third time, I'll be like, oh, go on then. I'll get you in. So be persistent. Follow things up. Find people you like. Find the person at the company who is who you connect with or who does the thing you want to do. And yeah, exactly what the others have said. I think keep making stuff. In video production, and I used to work in TV as well, in TV production. We always want to see work. So if you are making films with your friends, like other people have mentioned, and you can show that to someone, that's great, because that's how you can kind of show your potential. And yeah, I mean, I remember doing things like ripping things off YouTube and then doing my own edits, um, and then kind of watching how other people had edited things, and then like going through it frame by frame to see like how they'd done effects and how they'd done an edit, and then try to do that with my own things that I'd stolen off YouTube. And then I do remember showing that once to someone and them saying like, "Oh, like you can edit," and I was like, "Yeah." I've been trying to tell you, but unless you can show people, um, so keep making stuff, I think, and then keep showing it to people. Basically, it's the old like send people a demo tape kind of thing. Um, but I think that still is useful, and also even in making it, you'll be learning things too. So yeah, I think that would be my advice.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So on to Tilly for the next question.
Thank you so much, everybody. And just a reminder to everybody who is watching, if you go into the little more section at the bottom of your screen, you can ask a Q&A, and we will go through those questions when we have time. So, First Story is a creative writing charity, first and foremost, and we would love to know how you use writing and how you use creativity in your work and career, because it is so applicable to so many areas, and that's what we want to highlight. So, Testament, can we start with you?
Yes, indeed. Is this the question about writing for how do you use writing in your work, or is this
Yeah,
how? Great. Yeah, sorry, there was a bit of noise here. Um, yeah, so um, I use writing every day. I am a writer. Um, yeah, and I think it is quite scary writing, because it can feel quite isolating at times. So very occasionally I get to write with other people, which is really exciting, whether it's in a writer's room or co-writing a piece. Um, but yeah, essentially writing is my bread and butter, really. Music and writing. So lyrics, obviously, there's a direct application. But yeah, so today I've been writing a radio play and also writing pitches on for something else. Um, yeah. Um, I think yeah, it is. I've literally become a writer. So I'm either teaching writing in terms of paying my way through a week. I'm either teaching some sort of writing with occasionally beatbox, but because I'm a beatboxer. But most of the time, I'm either teaching writing, um, or doing writing TV or scripts or treatments or movie ideas or sometimes pitching for funding. But I'm using writing all the time, so being able to be um to normally with the gatekeeping side of things, I'm just going to talk about because writing, doing first story and learning about poems and prose, like there's a direct application if you are a writer. But there's things that you don't expect, like when you're writing a bid. One of the reasons why ChatGPT is so bad at writing bids, although it would be grammatically correct, and people are already sick of AI doing boring bids for people, is because you know how to express your character, you know how to express your own seasoning, your own special sauce, which AI doesn't know how to do. Even if you trained it up on your writing, it still doesn't do it. Um, I've got a friend who's a great writer who's trained up an AI on their style of writing, helps them out some ways, but in other ways they still have to basically do the graft. Um, but in terms of like even writing a bid where I'm applying for an arts council thing at the moment, and or if I'm applying for or there's the BBC every year, if you've got representation, you can throw ideas for radio dramas at them and stuff like that. Um, or TV companies as well. You writing a pitch document, which is really hard to write pitch documents because it's not like writing an actual thing which you want to write. It's like something that will engage someone who's got loads of money or opens a door or as a company and you want to ally with them. So to be able to in one page share your idea and get somebody excited about it is really hard. So if I wasn't a poet and a rapper and a storyteller, it would be even harder. So you didn't have to all the official whatever, cross the T's and dot the I's, but actually the thing that most time people get really excited about is like, what's your idea and can you convey it in a really exciting way? So even if it isn't perfect, like formally, but if people read it and they can get that emotion off the page, like a really good poem does, and it makes you feel some kind of way, that's really key. Um, yeah, and also just emailing people and being nice to them in email that's can be useful just for your standard emails as well. So there we go. So writing's had a massive effect on my life and in my industry in particular.
Thank you so much, Testament. I really resonate with what you've just said. Can we hand it over to Toby?
Yeah. Actually what Testament said at the end in terms of emailing people was one of the main things I was gonna say. Um, but yeah, I think obviously I spend a lot of time working with writers, and so I think it also means I spend a lot of time reading scripts, reading also like books and plays and other things as well. Especially because my specific process includes the development of some of these works as well. So if someone has approached me with an idea or maybe half a draft of a first script, we would spend a lot of time together thinking about the development of that story. Um, Even though they're the ones that are probably going to go away and do the actual writing, but we will really sit down and look at the sort of who, what, when, where, why of the thing that they're creating. And that's about aligning our tastes, figuring out what the crux of the story is for the format that we're telling it. Is it a short film? Is it a feature film? Is it for TV? Is it for online? What are the things that are required of each of these different formats? Um, and doing that work together, I think it just means I'm kind of in the brain of the writer as much as I can be. And then they will kind of go away and do the physical writing of it. Um, but the way that that story is shaped is usually through me asking a lot of questions and really just trying to understand what it is that they're trying to really make. What is it that they're trying to say with this piece of work? And how do we get to that point in the most interesting way while still holding on to the crux of the thing that they're trying to create. So I spend a lot of my time having those conversations with writers, which means that we do a lot of story building together. So even though I'm not necessarily the person writing, a lot of my work is still heavily creative because of that process. Um, or if I'm, but also if I'm trying to pitch a project to a financier or a commissioner, whoever it is that I'm hoping is going to pay for us to be able to make this piece of work, I also need to figure out the best ways of communicating that. Is that going to be through creating a pitch deck? Um, and sometimes the writer who might also be the director might create that. Sometimes they're like, I'm not a pitch deck person, so I would be the person creating that. And that's about being able to really clearly show what the story is, who are we as a team, where do we think it currently sits in and amongst all the other creative things happening at the moment. Um, and to be able to relay that information to someone who hasn't been sitting with us in all of our sessions through our development conversations and is hearing this for the first time and hoping to get them interested or excited enough that they want to continue that conversation. And then the approach. What's the approach? Do I know this person already? And so therefore, can I be a little bit more direct? Is this the first time that I'm meeting someone? And so is there a specific way that I need to approach them? Is it an open call? Is it an application? And I don't actually know who's going to be looking at it. All of those different things require different, I guess, levels of communication or ways of communicating. And so there's a flexibility to the way that I need to also approach the way that um I'm trying to pitch this work to different people. Um, but also if I want to get in touch with a playwright or an author because they have a play or a book that I'm really interested in adapting, um, being able to communicate very clearly the things that I really love about their work, how I kind of see it being adapted for a different space. I think all of those things are really important, and all of that comes back down to different ways of communication and different forms of writing as well. Um, so yeah, I know the focus can be on creatively. Um, what does it look like to, I guess, like sit down and write a piece of work? But I think in this industry as a whole, you're probably going to be writing other things that might not seem as immediately creative if you're writing a funding application or you're sending an email um, to someone that you're trying to work with or get on board with a project, or you're trying to get cheap equipment rental from a rental company. All of these different things require elements of really good storytelling, and really good persuasion, and getting people excited about you and the work that you're making to the point that they really want to support it in one way or another. Um, so yeah, I would say most of my job, to be honest, is talking to other people about stuff.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. Do you have anything to add?
Um, yeah, uh, very similar to what other people have said, really. I would say, sort of coming into this, I was a bit like, oh, am I enough of a writer to be doing a panel about writing? But actually, like everyone has said, I write all the time, and often that is, yeah, like pitches. So trying to win work when you're in creative work and you want to be paid for it, you have to write a lot of pitches about how you're going to approach something, what your creative approach is, why they should use you, and you have to be persuasive, and the way you write has to be interesting and engaging, and get people excited about what you're doing. I also write scripts for films I work on, so that might be a voiceover script, and it needs to kind of distill information. I do a lot of things where I have to sort of take something complicated and then and make it digestible and interesting, and sort of have a story and have a narrative. Um, but the work might be like we work on sort of science things where like one of the films we made was about someone who was working on a gel that you can put on that you can inject drugs into, and it releases drugs very slowly into the body, so you don't have to keep having drugs injected, basically. And the research is really complicated, but then we had to kind of tell the story through the scientists' words and also through the visuals, and um, in a way that sort of makes sense and is interesting and is in 3.5 minutes. So that's kind of how, the kind of writing I do has quite a lot of limitations, and it involves a different kind of skill. I've also done scripts for animation, so you've not necessarily got anyone talking. You've got, again, it's a voiceover, and you know that there's going to be like animated visuals, and you've got to write something that works with those as well. Um, and then again, like communicating your ideas to someone else. So, as a producer and a director, I'm not only directing like a crew on set, and I have to communicate to them what I want, um, and also what I think the client wants, and the feel of it, and be able to explain in language that that person understands, um, what the style of this, what we're doing here, like, um, and that's important as well, the editor. So then when it gets to the edit, I've got to communicate to the editor the style of how I want them to put the edit together. And so I write edit briefs, and I'll try and kind of, yeah, again, it'll be like 2 or 3 paragraphs about like, what is this? It's like trying to kind of condense what this is about, and communicate that to someone else. And you also, there's other lines of communication. I'm not just giving them a bit of paper and then running away. So you're using like verbal communication as well, but you do often have to write something and send it to them, and then hope that that gives them enough information to kind of be able to translate what you want into their work as well. So yeah, do writing all the time.
Writing is life, and I
Writing
feel
is
like that is definitely what has resonated. So I'm going to pass over to Daisy for the last question of the evening.
Yes, so we have enough time to squeeze one last thing in. So I'm gonna ask, what is like the best piece of advice that, like, quick piece of advice that you were given that you could like in turn hand over as sort of like a advice towards young people trying to enter this field in media? And then I can start with Testament, if that's okay.
Hey, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay,
All
that was great.
perfect.
Um, do your growing up in public. Do your growing up in public. This was advice that the next men gave me, who are hip hop producers turned massive, massive pop producers. Um, which basically means don't wait to be in the perfect situation with everything totally aligned. This was me as a musician. Like, don't wait to finish the perfect album before you release it. Do something that you feel that you can stand by, but like it doesn't, don't wait to have the perfect microphone and access to a £1 million studio when you've already got a studio on your phone or on a laptop or whatever. And actually, you're going to learn stuff by putting it out into the world. Um, and every time you put it out, you're going to build, not everyone will like it necessarily, but you might get one diehard fan out of it and they'll be with you for the rest, or they'll make one really good link with someone that will be your advocate for the rest of your life, or they'll help you support you to the next stage. Um, so do your growing up in public is my most valuable advice I've ever had.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I'll move to Em now, if that's okay.
One piece of advice.
Yes, sorry
Um,
about that.
um, I think I don't know who told me this or where I heard it, but I think advice that which is maybe helpful at the beginning is that like if you're frustrated that or being hard on yourself that you sort of don't think what you're making is good, or you're frustrated by the way you're making. I think that's a really good sign that you have good taste and you know what you want. So that's a really important part of the journey, is being frustrated by your own work sometimes. And I think that is what makes you good at it in the long run, because those standards that you're trying to meet, you will get there. And you can also spot when other people that you work with are good because you've got good taste. Um, so I think that's what I'd say.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And now on to Toby.
The best piece of advice someone gave me when I was starting out in this industry was it's not that deep. And that doesn't mean don't care about the work that you're doing, but it's not everything that you make is going to be the be all and end all of your career, or the thing that is going to like, oh my God, this is going to change my life. Um, it can't be the point of every single project that you do. Um, and so I think it also relates to what Em said at the very first question about knowing how to slightly distance yourself from some of the work that you do as well. Um, but yeah, like this is such a fun industry to work in. Like I get to wake up and make stories and then go to sleep. Like it's when you say it, it's slightly unserious, but in like the best way. And so in doing this work, we shouldn't be um hurting ourselves or hurting other people or putting our bodies through immense stress and anxiety. Um and resting all of our laurels on this one project that's going to potentially change our lives. There is no roadmap in this industry. A lot of it is luck and timing and things like that. So when I say it's not that deep, it's also just sort of like just relax and enjoy the process of the making. Um, because I just don't think we can survive in this industry otherwise. I think it just leads to immense burnout, and hurt and all of this kind of stuff. So yeah, it's not that deep.
Amazing advice. Thank you so much. So I'll hand over to Rose for one last word before we begin to wrap up.
Thank you, Daisy, but I'll actually pass over to Tilly.
So we have had the winner of the book token be announced. Um, so Beth Rizador, you are the winner of the £25 book token for attending, and we will be in touch next week by email with more details for that. I would also like to mention that in the chat imminently there will be the link to the evaluation form. Please, please fill this out, because these opportunities are incredible and they can only happen because of funding from Arts Council England. And we need your feedback to let us know how we can make these better if we're going to do them again. Me and Daisy are part of the Young Creatives Collective, which is an incredible organisation that has created a zine. It is a creative project for 16 to 25-year-olds, and it is amazing. The link is in the chat as well. And also the link to the First Story Instagram will be in the chat. And this is where we share all of our competitions, all of our news, and loads of fun stuff. We have just announced what day National Writing Day is on. So give that a check out and you will see kind of what we're up to. I will hand over to Daisy to wrap up, but I would like to say from myself a massive thank you to all of you for attending, and a massive thank you to our wonderful panelists. Daisy.
Perfect. So, on behalf of myself and of First Story, we just want to say a massive thank you to each and every one of you, for all of our panelists and to all of our attendees. We are very grateful to have you here. So, thank you all very much. And that is the end of our panel for today.